I'm gonna be honest, I don't really remember it much. It's just kind of like weed in the beach. That's
Hi, I'm your host, Sarah, and this is Travel Like You, the podcast where you're invited to come along as I collect anecdotes from people's adventures around the world so that hopefully you and I can learn from them and maybe get some inspiration for your next trip. In this very first episode, originally recorded in April 2024, we hear from one of my dear friends, Francesca, who travels like no one I'd ever met before and somehow still saves money. Quick side note though, for any French speakers listening, forgive me for my embarrassingly overconfident mispronunciation of the French word vendange, which means grape harvest. I'm still working on that. You'll see what I mean. Hi, Francesca.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. Excited to be here.
Good. I'm so glad you're here. So go ahead and introduce yourself. We have Francesca. Do I know how to pronounce your last name? I almost said it in
French. Yeah. You can say Dirocco, whatever.
Okay.
Dirocco's fine.
Okay. Good to know.
So my name is Francesca. I am an American Peruvian living in France. I'm an English teacher. I actually just finished my job about less than a week ago, last week. I don't know what else to say about myself.
Well, you're applying for your master's, is that correct?
Yes. Okay. So I studied psychology, kind of took a break there to, move to another country. And I've always loved teaching, so I wanted to pursue that. But now I'm ready to get back into what I really like to do, which is like learning about psychology, human behavior, stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get your master's in France or in Europe or?
I'd love to do it in France just because I want to live here. And so having that base in French, I want to do it in French. But I am also applying to other places. I'm not completely set on France. I'm kind of seeing what happens, kind of going with the flow. You gotta tell yourself that.
Yeah, you kind of have to be flexible.
Yeah. Yes, flexible and like not let the anxieties eat you at night. But
because I know it was stressful for
a
lot of people, not just you, applying for your master's now.
I think that's the. You have moments where you're telling yourself like it's good to go with the flow. It's good to, life has so many opportunities and it feels almost motivating. But then we forget that like there's a lot of anxiety that comes with that. And if we're not aware and we're not like managing it, it can start, it could pile up. So just, trusting the process. I didn't pick a very traditional path in life. So, no, it's, you're going to have moments where you just don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And it should be exciting. Which it is. It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the excitement comes with stress. But this is
Yes.
your psychology degree,
playing
a role in you figuring out how to keep calm.
Yeah.
During,
How do you have anxiety, bro? Just check your notes. Just right?
Just check your notes. That's funny. I like that. So basically, now I'm going to give you an opportunity to start with a no context story. So what that means is you have the right to tell me basically a one-liner about something that's happened to you on your travels, and you get to decide whether you give me the context or not. And then at the end, if you want to give the details, you can.
I would like to give you the context at the end.
Okay.
Just because I think it's necessary.
We're just going to let this hang in the air.
Yeah. But I remember, while traveling, I was having breakfast and I needed to poop. So I just walked over a few steps, pulled my pants down and pooped on the floor. And it was okay. So wait till the end to find out why.
Oh my God. I can't even possibly imagine the circumstances.
Yeah.
All right. That's good.
Yeah. Good bowel movements.
Yeah.
Which is rare for traveling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, funnily enough, I think one of the best parts of how we know each other is how much we strangely have in common, and yet we didn't meet in Florida, where we both
Yeah.
grew up, not far from each other. We even went to the same university.
Yeah.
Go Gators.
Mm-hmm.
And the best part, I think, is the fact that we met while traveling, or at least I
Yes.
heard your voice.
Yes. No, I did see your face for a
Okay.
brief second. You popped out of your, cocoon in your hostel.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Are you guys American? Are you guys teaching assistants in France?" And
Yeah.
we're like, "Yeah."
Exactly. And then what do you know? I moved to the city that you're in.
Yeah.
So it's so funny the way that works. I do love that story. For context, we were in Strasbourg, in the north of France, and we were there around Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the person that I am, I heard other people in the hostel room speaking English, and I was like, hey, sounds like you may know what I do and I may know what you do. What with all of us being teaching assistants. And that's how Francesca and I met. And then we exchanged Instagrams, which we didn't know we did.
and then when I the first time I went to go text you after you moving to Bordeaux, we had already texted.
Yep.
And I'm like there seeing you for the first time in Bordeaux. I'm like, how do I know this chick? Like,
gosh, that face is so familiar.
we're like, you went to UF? Like, it must be that. It must be that. Yeah. But we didn't even go at the same time. Like, no. Yeah. And then my friend who I was traveling with looked at us and was like, "Are you guys stupid? Like, we met in Strasbourg. Like, what?"
Yeah, like we slept in the same room.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, our origin story is a travel story.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Cute. I think that's adorable. So by then it was both of our first years in France, right? So we had just gotten there. You had visited before, right?
Yeah, I actually, I had been to France a lot. I went to a French-American school growing up. In a very cultural, diverse city. So all the French families put their children in this school. So like they grew up with like their native language is French, like their family lives in France. And I was just there like the little Peruvian girl, like, just like struggling, like hyperventilating when the teacher would be like, "Okay, read out loud." And I'm like, damn it.
Yeah, like,
no, but it built a lot of character and it really built my French. I would not have the level I have today, but because a lot of my friends were French, so I think twice I came to France because my friends would come in the summer to see their grandparents, and they were like, "Come." So I got to see Brittany, I got to see Bretagne and Corsica.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had been there before, and then I also studied abroad in France.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this was your first year as a teaching assistant.
Right.
Which is what brought both of us here.
2021.
Okay.
Okay,
yeah. So 2021 Christmas is when we met. And tell me a little bit about what it was like moving to France. You had, that experience already, having visited and having studied abroad. But to move here, what was the experience like?
Yeah. I think, just the fact that I had been here before, I only studied abroad for the program was 6 weeks, but I stayed for like another month and a half. So I really, extended that tourist visa. But yes, because I had been here before, I want to say I felt comfortable all of a sudden, just right away, but that definitely wasn't the case. Like I remember coming here and being super anxious. I think that just would have happened in general, maybe. I don't know. It had been like 2 or 3 years since I had been to France. And I came all by myself. So, and I knew no one. So I remember like barely eating for like 3 days because I was like so anxious to go like get food.
Yeah.
But besides that, I'd say it was pretty smooth. I had done a lot of research before coming and like figuring out like, okay, you need an address to get a bank account. But you need
bank account to get an address.
You need a bank account to get an address. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
but we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure it out. So it wasn't too bad. I was able to figure it out pretty quickly. And well, I guess, what did I do? My Airbnb host gave me his address to put down. He was so lovely. I think he kind of took pity on me a little bit. But he was so nice. He lived in this like cool artsy apartment, and he just like rented out one of the rooms, and I was staying there, in order to figure out my life. And he was great. He like took me out. He was like, yeah, just I'll write you a letter saying you live here so that you can get your bank account.
Oh, wow, that's a trick. If you have the chance to do something like that, that's a great way to go about it. For sure.
Yeah.
When you move here, it's so complicated. Some people just try to go a very traditional route, and they're like, okay, I'll just find an apartment right away. But sometimes you have to stay in an Airbnb or I mean, if you can afford it. There's so many things that play into that, because that can get really expensive really fast. I have friends who were Airbnb-ing for like 2 months and then almost just went home because they like
they couldn't
through their
find
savings just trying to find a place to live. But getting like your Airbnb host to write a note for you is a really good way to sort of skirt that whole not having an address when you need an address to do all the other administrative things here. So yeah, good for you. That's good.
So when I was studying abroad here in 2019, summer 2019, I was going to study abroad, and then I was going to go travel elsewhere after this. Super complicated, but basically I needed to get a visa. I lost my passport in the mail, but that got sorted. That wasn't too much of an issue.
Okay.
Because I just went to the French embassy, got a temporary one, and I was good.
Okay.
So I traveled around for a bit, and then I went to Barcelona for a week because my cousin was studying there. She's like, yeah, you could stay with me. So I stayed there. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really remember it much. It's just kind of like weed and the beach. That's what I remember from my week-long trip to Barcelona.
Oh my goodness.
We were both just like broke too, so we weren't doing like many touristy things.
Yeah.
And then that's when I was in Barcelona, I found this volunteering gig. Like I emailed them and I was like, can I come in like a week? And they're like, yeah. So I fly to Marseille. I get to the bus stop, and I was like, this is great. Because everything's booked. Like I'm just waiting for the bus here. The bus was at midnight, or like 12:30, something like that. Mind you, I made a mistake. Because obviously weed is legal in Barcelona, and there's like smoking clubs and like all of this, like it's very much in the culture. I forgot that I had it was even already lit, like it was a half smoked joint. And it was just like chilling in my book bag like while I took this flight.
Oh my God, you brought it on a plane.
Yeah. And I didn't even notice until I got to the bus station, which is also the train station. And I was just like going through my bag, and I was like, hey, like, check this out.
Lucky me.
So I'm like, perfect for this 8-hour Flixbus ride. So I smoked the joint. I'm like, it kind of starts to rain, but I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, let's just, the bus comes, scan my ticket. Oh, it's not working. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, here's my ticket. And he's like, oh, ma'am, like, it's July. You booked this for August.
No.
I think what date was it? It was like, 7, 8, and 8 and 7, like July, August.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yes. So for any Americans listening, the dates are reversed. So in the US and in Canada, right, we do month, day, year.
Mm-hmm.
And in all of Europe,
I mean, I think like
everywhere else in the world.
everywhere else,
I don't
yeah,
wanna
we
sound
do.
ignorant, but-
We do. Yeah, well, to be honest, it makes more sense.
To do it, well, bottom line is in Europe they do
Day, month, year. Yeah.
And
So I mixed up August 7th and like July 8th,
Oh,
you know,
goodness,
like
yeah.
7887. And I was like, you know, like I don't know anyone in Marseille. It's like midnight. Like
yeah.
I was like, I need to get on this bus. Like, how much is it? Like, can I please buy a ticket? And he was like, you know, now that I look back on it, he probably pocketed that money.
Oh my goodness.
But fine, you know what? I don't care. I don't care.
How much was it? Do you remember?
I think it was like 60 or 70 euros.
Marseille, Bordeaux.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, but this is 2019.
okay. And this is a train?
It's
Or
a
a
bus, a Flix bus.
Oh, but come on.
Yeah, but whatever. Like, I wasn't gonna argue. You know, I was like, okay, like I just need to like.
No, I mean I get it.
I'm
But
chilling.
He probably pocketed that money. Hardcore.
Yeah, because he was like cash only,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, like I don't have cash. Like, and he's like, okay, like go in the train station and get cash. And I'm like, okay, like it's raining. I'm stoned. Like, good thing I was, because I was like, all right, like this is what I gotta do, or whatever.
More stressed,
So I'm
yeah.
like running back to the train station. The janitor is locking up the train station. Like he is locking the doors, and I'm like banging. I'm like, hold on. And he's like, oh, like what's up? And I'm like, I need to come in here and get cash. Like, please. Like, can you give me 5 minutes? And he's like, yes. So like, thankfully, like I had ran when I did, and I caught him, because if not, there was no way for me to get cash. So I get the cash, and then I get on the bus and I make my way to Porto.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Ugh. Talk about transportation, like mishaps. My God. I'm sure at some point everyone has a story, not quite as eventful, but
Yeah.
the things that happen when you're trying to take a bus or a train or a plane is inevitable. I feel like you're gonna run into problems, but that was exceptional.
Yeah, especially when I feel like you're doing things on a budget, so you know you're not always taking the easiest like travel route.
No.
And you're like circumventing all these things, and like making like, I guess, you know, triple check, right? Like triple check your itinerary, like triple check your tickets. You know, you would think that taught me my lesson. I have made many more mistakes along the way, like booking dates wrong. Even just like in my head thinking, oh, the flight's at 8, but the flight was at 7.
Oh,
and I I have missed flights. But you know what? Like, it is what it is. Like, in the moment, it feels like the end of the world. Like, oh, like I was trying to save money and now I have to pay even more money. And, you know, like I'm traveling on a budget and this ruins all the plans. But like, here I am now, and I don't look back on those things as like, I really fucked up. I really messed up doing that. I just like, again, they're like funny stories.
Yeah. Thankfully. I mean, obviously there's always like that side of you that's like, oh, it could have been so much worse.
Yeah. I just think as long as you're safe, is, you know,
these can be funny stories because nothing worse happened, which is good. But man, is that a funny story now? I can imagine.
Yeah.
In the moment, not so much. But yeah, that's wild. And so, backtracking a little bit, you're here in 2019 to do the vendage, right?
Well, it wasn't the vendage yet, because that's in the fall.
That's in the fall.
But I was just there volunteering, because there's still a lot of other things to do. He also had like a goji berry farm. Super random in France.
Okay.
But yeah, so we mainly worked on the goji berries in the summer, just like harvesting those.
Okay.
Which is very, very therapeutic.
Yeah. Just picking.
You're just picking there one by one, like you're just there in the field, and yeah, it's so nice.
Yeah. And so this is the experience, the volunteering opportunity that you sort of applied for from Barcelona. Okay.
So the vineyard is about not too far from this very famous place called Saint-Emilion. If you like Bordeaux wine, if you like French wine, red wine, a Saint-Emilion. It's not even an hour away from Bordeaux, which is so like southwest of France. And so I was, they were like, yeah, come. I was like, okay, like, they had some reviews on their page and they all looked really good. So I was like, okay, cool. So I go, I get to Bordeaux, and then from Bordeaux, you have to take a train to this, the town is called Castillon. So very, very small town. Basically, it's like one street long is like the main town. And I'm just like there alone. I think I was like 20 years old.
Oh my God, baby.
And I was like, I don't have like, I'm just like messaging this guy on WhatsApp, and I'm like, hey, like, are you coming? And he's like, yeah, I'm on my way to pick you up from the station. And just like this man comes out in his like busted car. He's a farmer. Like this busted car. He's got like 2 teeth and these like piercing blue eyes, like the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen. And he goes, Francesca? And I'm like, fuck, like what did I get myself into? But yeah, and I almost felt like being like, no, that's not me. But I was like, yep, that's me. And I got in the car, and so he just like takes me to his I guess it's like a homestead. It's his house where he has the goji berries, he has goats, he has chickens, he has his potager, he's like his home garden where he grows his own food. And I get there, and there's like a bunch of other volunteers from there was, a girl from Switzerland, a guy from Morocco, a guy from England, and they're coming and going, right? Like everyone's in and out of this house, like the travelers. And so you're just meeting all of these people. And I remember, I was 20 at the time. And everyone that was doing this was much older than I was. And it just, everyone was like 25 and up. I would say there was no one younger than that. And it was so interesting because so many of them were like, yeah, I was a physical therapist, and, the hospital was just totally overworking me. So I quit my job, and now I'm figuring out what I want to do. And I'm hearing that as a 20-year-old was so reassuring. Because, you're in university, you're like, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and that. Like, I'm studying psychology. Immediately, I'm going to go into my doctorate, and I'm going to do this for the next 4 to 7 years. And then I'm going to start my practice. And then I'm going to, and you're like trying to plan out your life and like write every step down. And you're like, oh, hold on. Like, wait a second. These people are like 7 years older than me, and they also don't know what they're doing with their life. Like
no one has anything figured out.
Yeah. So and like they did, and then they didn't, and that's okay. And it was just really nice to hear that. I think I was going into my junior year of university. So it was, I don't know. It was very eye opening to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can say that when I moved here, I was 25, and everyone else doing the teaching assistant program that we were in was 22.
Yeah, fresh out of university.
Yeah, most of them were 22, 23. This was their, what is it, like gap year after university before the real world. And I had experienced the real world already, and I did my best with it, but I needed a break. I burnt out. And part of that, I would say is like, I don't know how to put it other than like, part of that is my fault. I worked really hard, and I'm really proud of what I did before I came here. But I can imagine if I were 20 years old, hearing someone 25, figuring out that, maybe what they'd had planned for themselves wasn't what they wanted anymore. There is definitely a huge reassuring side to that. I had to figure that out myself, but I definitely met a lot of 22, 23-year-olds who were like, oh, you had a whole life before you came here? You're not just coming straight out of university? And I was like, oh, yeah. And so it's also cool to hear that like people are off doing other people are off doing that because I felt a little bit like, oh, I'm late to the game, right? I should have traveled more, in my 20s, like my early 20s, or, with whatever opportunities I could have had. But that's really cool that like you met people from all those different backgrounds and life experience too, especially being around older, mid 20s when you're 20, that's older, right?
Yeah.
Because you're in a totally different stage of your life for sure.
So I think 25 and up, because a lot of them were in their 30s too, traveling. So yes, if it's not doing it to teach abroad, like also just like volunteering abroad, traveling, you could do it at any age. You could do it at any time.
And it doesn't have to be you pick up your life and move here like we did.
Yeah.
You can come for a volunteering thing. And we say volunteering because it's usually some kind of exchange, right? So you don't just come to work for free and then you figure everything out. They housed you, right? And they fed you?
Yes.
Okay.
Every volunteer difference is a little experience is a little different. You can work in hostels in the city. You could work on an organic farm in the countryside. You could do somewhere in between. You can, like do kind of almost like an au pair situation, like just helping people in their house. There's so many websites and so many ways to do it, and each one's going to be a little different. But I think, yeah, you're not just going and giving free labor.
Yeah.
Which can happen. So you want to make sure, you want to be aware of that. And there
You do
does
your research.
there's always reviews that'll tell you that. But even if you do find yourself in a situation like that, it builds, it makes you stand up for yourself, because you have to speak out. A lot of these people, they're not tracking how many hours you worked in a day, right? Because a lot of it's really casual. Like we work in the morning a little bit, we work in the afternoon a little bit. But you are, because you're the one working. So, and you don't have to be stern about it, but be like, hey, like, I already worked 5 hours today. Like, I'm going to go like down to the beach.
Good.
Yeah. And me, I'm a huge people pleaser. So, it's given me a bit of a backbone, to do that. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's such an important thing that comes a lot with traveling, is you just learn to be so much more self-sufficient.
Yeah.
In so many different ways. Traveling really helps you build that character. Sometimes, normally for the better, right? But sometimes they're hard lessons to learn. What was the best part?
I never wore shoes.
Oh yeah.
I think the entire time I was there, I barely wore shoes, because you're just like on this farm. Christian, the property owner, he's a little, he doesn't just do organic. He does biodynamic, I don't know how to say it in English. But basically it's not just organic, but you're planting things according to like the stars and the moon.
Okay.
It's very like based on astrology. So he like his whole like gardening, his whole like homesteading is based on that. Wow. So it's really interesting. And like the way like when to plant certain things and that. So he's really into like earthing.
Earthing meaning like connecting with the earth?
So earthing or grounding is this idea of just walking barefoot on earth, like on the earth, because like earth has like this energy and it gets transferred into you. I'm gonna be honest. There's not a lot of scientific proof to back it up, but it just felt good.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's placebo.
It's not placebo. It made me happier.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, even if there's no science to back it up, like the proof is in the way you feel.
Yeah, and just like getting your hand, like again, because it's organic, like we had to do the de-weeding a lot. So just like getting into the earth with your hands and like, I think that was just the best part. It's like feeling really connected. Like every meal we ate came from the food we grew.
Wow.
And it was like, and there was no schedule. There was no like, okay, today you're gonna cook dinner and like you're gonna clean. Like everyone just, we woke up in the day and we're like, okay, what needs to get done? It's lunchtime. Who's gonna cook? What can we cook today? Let's see what's in the garden. It was just like organized chaos, like it all worked out. Everyone is here to pitch in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it corny to say the vibes? The vibes were the best part.
No, I can totally feel it. And it's important too to remember that these kinds of experiences where you get to, reconnect with sort of the basic things that we take for granted. And if we're being honest, like we should also acknowledge that there are people, this is just their life. Right.
Yeah.
People have to take care of their land. They have to do these things. They don't have a choice. And so it's also important for us to go and do these things to remember that like our food comes from somewhere. There are people who do this work. Things like this that I imagine probably help people reconnect with the idea that we are so dependent on the earth that we live on, and that we have to preserve that. We have to, follow the lead of people like this who are really connected to it and who appreciate it, and, use the stars and the moon and all that to make our produce and all this stuff. And that's a really cool experience because I imagine it sort of brought you back to that basic human sort of like connection to the earth, which also sounds corny, but it's something that I feel like I would love to do.
I mean, I started growing tomatoes out of my apartment when I got back.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and it's just doing that made me realize like this is my preferred way to travel. We didn't really touch on this, but in France, how the school system works is that you have vacation every 6 weeks. In the school, in university, it's only 1 week, but in the schools, it's 2 weeks. So when we were teaching assistants, we had 2-week breaks every 6 weeks, which is amazing.
Yeah, we fully acknowledge how lucky we were to have so much time off. And we were still technically, we weren't paid a lot, let's be honest. But with our, salary or whatever, those vacations weren't unpaid. There was no, just because we had 2 weeks off, we were still paid for that time. So that's cool too.
Yeah. And I found myself, everyone was like, okay, what city are we going to go to? Like, let's do these 3 cities. And I was like, nah, like I want to go back to a farm and like volunteer like in a different country or somewhere else. Yeah, and I just started doing that a lot, going to like different places to volunteer and like give work for a place to stay, food. You're helping out, people who actually live there. You're contributing.
Yeah, it's really cool that you can have this opportunity. You can help maybe a small business or a small farm and all these things, mix in with people from all over the world, reconnect with the earth, especially when you're doing something like working on a farm through those different volunteer opportunities. And at the same time, it's like you're traveling all over.
Yeah.
Because it's so authentic and so real. I'll admit I've done a lot more like city hopping, but I
have
know.
to. Yeah.
Yeah. But I also didn't know about these experiences. I travel on a budget too. I mean, I try to save every nickel and dime I can.
Yeah. And now you're doing one in the summer, right? You're going to Greece.
Yeah. And it's like, if not, half, it's maybe completely thanks to you, because I really had no clue that these opportunities existed. And I'm going to be working for a small like camping business over there, or a Greek family that runs a glamping site. And so I'll be doing that, and I'm really excited because I'll have 4 weeks and I'm on like sort of an island far from the mainland, close to Turkey. So I'll be exploring, a part that I may have never even considered
living
going
your
to.
Mamma Mia moment.
We'll see. Oh man, there's parts of that movie I don't want to recreate, but yeah.
Yeah,
maybe.
but you're so right. I came here to talk about, all the ways it benefits me. But I think about it, I'm like, that Christian, he would not be able to produce his wine if it wasn't for the volunteers. I think about the bed and breakfast that I worked at in Cassis, which is a small town in the south of France, not too far from Marseille. She's, a single like mother. Well, her children are all grown up, but she runs this bed and breakfast all by herself, and she only has 2 volunteers come, but I you could see how grateful she is to have these people, and like she treats us like her children, like she treats us like family. And every volunteer place I've been to, like I have felt like family, like I have felt so welcomed in this home. I mean, I'm very lucky, because I'm sure there's bad stories too. Yeah, I guess it'll depend. I haven't done much of like hospitality. I did work in a hotel hostel situation in Greece.
What was that like?
Yeah, well, I guess they're not always super like, barefoot in the soil. There are stressful moments. I would say the one in Greece was probably the most stressful. I remember I got there, and I pulled up, I think my flight landed like around 10 or 11. It was late at night. And they said they were going to come pick me up. But no one was answering.
Oh, no.
So I'm like sitting at the airport for an hour, waiting for someone to answer. They finally do. And she was like, hey, I'm really tired. Like, can you just take a taxi? And I was like, okay.
Oh, that's not cool.
It was not cool.
No.
And she was like, don't worry. Like, just go to the lobby and they'll help you out. So I pull up to this place. The taxi man like drops me off, and like I get to the front door. That door is chained up. Like there is no one there, and there was literal like a chain around it. Like could not signal that is locked up more. And I'm like, okay, cool. There's like this dog there, and I'm like, dog, I think I'm sleeping with you outside tonight. Like I don't know what I'm doing. So and mind you, this place is huge. Like there's like the main building, which is huge, but there's like 3 other buildings.
Is this a hostel?
It's both.
Okay.
Like the main building is more of a hotel vibe.
Okay.
But the other ones are more hostels. Like you could sleep, in rooms with people you don't know and stuff like that. So I'm just like, you know what? Like, let me just walk around. Like, there's nothing else for me to do. If not, like, there's a lounge chair right here. I could just chill here. Like, I could go to sleep here, I guess. Like, I'm like in this like random island in Greece. Like, and so I go to this building and I hear like girls giggling. And I'm like, I don't know why, but like this seems like a safe space. So I knock on the door and I'm like, hi. And they're like, what the fuck? And I'm like, yo, my bad. Like, I'm here to volunteer. And someone was supposed to help me in the lobby, but there's no one there. Do you guys know anything about this? And they're like, oh my God, like we're volunteers.
Oh.
And I was like, bet.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
And they're like, yeah, like sleep here. Like there's your bed.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like, awesome. So that worked out. But that was really cool. What I did there was I would work the breakfast, which I really liked, even though like I had to wake up early. So because it was, it's Greece, it's a lot of partying. I definitely slept in the afternoons.
Okay.
So I would wake up in the morning, help out with the buffet brunch, which was like an hour, like, a few hours. And then in the afternoons, like after lunch, I would either do like kayak tours or hiking tours, taking the guests on these like excursions. Okay.
I can see where this is going.
The kayak tours were great because the owner had a son. I think he was 12. His name was Spiros. And like Speedos and I quickly became like homies. Like, and he would come on all my kayak excursions, like mainly because I didn't know where I was going. Like, but like, you can't have your guests be led by a 12-year-old kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I was basically his puppet.
Oh my goodness.
And like, so he would get on my kayak and then he'd be like, all right, like, let's go here. But like the guests didn't know that.
They thought you were in charge.
Yeah.
you were
Like,
not.
and he was just like my assistant, but it was really the other way around. So yeah, he would always come on mine, and like, yeah, that was also really interesting. I had never become so close to a 12-year-old. But he was just like such a smart kid. Yeah. So like we would do a lot of things together, which was really nice. Like I in no way felt like a babysitter,
Yeah.
Like he was still youthful, and obviously I'm not gonna act the way I do with
You're not
like people my age.
Yeah. You're not going to employ this 12-year-old, but you're going to let him help you.
Right.
Course.
But for the hikes, the owner was like, hey, go on this hike with the yoga instructor, because like she had done the hike a million times. She was like, go on the hike with the yoga instructor so that you can like start leading the hikes too. I was like, okay, cool. So like I did the hike once. Mind you, this is like a 3-4 hour hike. Like we like hiked through the mountains to like this village, eventually to like this lookout point, and then it loops back to the hostel, to the hotel. So it's long, and it's not just like you're not on like this one path. Like you need to know where you're going. So I'm there, I'm like, trying to like remember it, whatever. I'm like taking notes, mental notes, and like, it seemed easy to me. I was like, we didn't even turn that much. We didn't like, there weren't like many ways you could go. So when the property owner says like, hey, like, can you lead the hike now? I was like, honestly, I would prefer not to. But like if no one can do it, like sure, I think I can do it. She was like, yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
People pleaser in you.
Right. The people pleaser in me, but also like, woman, like, like what are you doing? Like, how could you have a volunteer like who's only done the hike once? Like lead your guests.
Yeah.
So she was like, yeah, you'll be fine. Like, go for it. And then she had me take a new volunteer so that she could learn the hike too. So and obviously I'm not allowed to say to the guests, like, this is my second time doing the hike. Like, I need to act like I know what I'm doing. So we're like going on this hike, and like slowly but surely I'm like, we are not going the right way. And I'm like starting to get really anxious because I'm not allowed to say, like, I'm not allowed to ask for help. I'm not, like, I'm the only one who's ever done this hike on, like, in this group of, I'm probably leading like 10 to 15 people.
Oh my goodness.
And then bless Sarah Bell, she was the new assistant. She was with me. She was like, this is messed up. I was like, it's fine, we'll deal with it later. But like, we gotta, we eventually like go down this path, and I'm like, we need to turn back. Like, we need to turn back and go the other way. But like, how do we do that without, like saying we're lost? And I was like, so I stopped the group and I was like, all right, everyone. So what, I'm realizing now we don't have that much time. What I wanted to do was take you out to kind of like this lookout spot, but I'm going to be honest, it's going to add like another hour to our hike. And it's a pretty intense hike. So would you guys just prefer to like go back? And like a lot of them, I was selling it where I was like, this is going to be really annoying and hard and long. And they were all like, yeah, let's just go back. Except this one girl. No. She was like, but like, if the view's worth it, I'm like, it's not. There's no view. There's no.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah, but I'm like, no, like, trust me, and I don't think the rest of the group wants to do it. You could do it again another time. So that worked out. Eventually, because I'm also texting people that are in the hostel. I'm like, where I'm lost. Eventually, one of the yoga teachers hits me up and she's like, yeah, go this way. So we were able to find the town. We were able to do everything, but it was fine. But that was definitely like really nerve wracking where like for 3 hours, I'm like, on edge, like making decisions. If do I turn left? Do I turn right? Like,
Are there indicators? Is it a
no.
trail of some kind?
There's
No.
no, it's not a trail.
Oh my goodness.
Like there is a trail at one point, but then like you get to this town and you need to know where in the town you need to go. Total like different landscapes, different stuff. So at one point when we get to the town, we all stop for a coffee, a drink. I'm like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I don't go to the bathroom. I like run, like to kind of guide myself through the trail to be like, okay, how do I get out of this town and back to the hotel? So I'm like kind of just like lightly jogging this hike, just deep enough to where I'd be like, okay, this seems right. And then I just jog back and I'm like, long line. Like,
Oh my goodness. Wow. Oh my gosh. The way that you had to figure out the tour while on the tour.
Yeah.
Basically, like totally, I was going to say au pif, like literally you're making it up as you go.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. And they're like asking me questions like, how long have you been volunteering here for? And I'm like, oh, I've been coming for years.
You became a new person on this hike.
Yeah, so it could get a little sketchy at times. But obviously, in that situation I should have been like, hey, I don't know the route, like, and I don't think I could do it. Right. And again, that's instances where during these volunteer opportunities, like, again, I see it more in like the hostel, hotel, like hospitality stuff where like the property owners or like the owners of the establishment, just like, they're not in your shoes.
Yeah.
So they don't know, and like they've been doing this for so many years, and like you need to give them perspective and be like, hey, like, I know like the hike very well and it seems easy to you, but I only did it once and it's a 3-hour hike and it's not just one trail,
Right.
I should have just said no.
Yeah, it's another example of learning when to stand up for yourself, to know your own limits, and to let other people know what your limits are. Especially when, whether you're working a real job in everyday life or traveling, and travel volunteering. Definitely when you're in a situation like that, you could have said no. Again, it's now a funny story,
right?
And everything turned out okay. But still a lesson learned. And on the other side of things, like, you were clearly capable of managing the situation. It turned out great. The lie about, I would have loved to take you all the way out there for this.
It took me 10 minutes to come up with that lie. We were like 10 minutes going into the wrong direction. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And I just kept stalling. And I was like,
and you're still going in the wrong direction. And I was like,
we need to turn back eventually. Like, what am I going to say? And I was like, I got it.
Perfect. And you're talking at the same time. You're giving a tour.
Yeah.
So
I'm like telling them, I'm like, yeah, like, go, after this, like, in a few hours, there's sunset yoga. Like, you go to yoga.
That's amazing.
Which I did every single day. Sunset yoga. At that place.
Okay, for the hostel.
Because they did yoga retreats at the hotel too.
Oh, cool.
So sunset yoga, then go upstairs, have a little drink while we wait for the guests to eat the buffet, and then like the volunteers could eat the buffet, and like the buffet. That's another thing when you're doing these volunteers, the food.
Yeah, you have to find ones that give you food though. Like sometimes it's only one meal a day.
Yeah.
The
They'll
best
say
ones
it.
give you multiple.
Yeah.
The one I'm doing in Greece is 3 meals a day.
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna eat so
It's like
good.
homemade. I'm so excited.
You're gonna eat
it's like
so well.
Homemade, like family style Greek food.
Yeah.
3 times a day. I'm going to gorge myself. I'm sure. I love Greek food on top of that. So I'm really excited. But yeah, the best volunteer experiences when you do these sorts of things, when you're doing your research, are, you have to be willing to, you're going to work, but you're also going to look into what you get back from it too, obviously. And so, I tried to find one that was interesting, where I don't mind hard work. That's for sure. I know I'm going to be getting up early for this, and you have to
Yeah.
accept that you might be doing things outside of your comfort zone, but you also want to make sure you're not going to get taken advantage of. Read the reviews, and get something back in return. Like go somewhere you also want to see and enjoy. And try, and the point is too, this is also a way to save money. So if you can get the meals, if they offer meals, great. And then a cool place to stay, a safe place to stay. It can definitely be worth it. And especially from, hearing your stories, even if the hostel in Greece wasn't the best one, it still sounds like something that was.
It was still amazing.
Unforgettable.
It was so amazing. Just meeting the people there, and everyone was so lovely. Yeah,
That's great.
for sure.
And that's a big reason why it's so important to like tell the stories of your travels, not just keep them for yourself, because we learn from each other. We learn from the people that we meet on our trips, and it really just they say it, right? It's extremely cliche, but it's true. We say it for a reason. Like when you have not everyone loves to travel. Some people do it a little bit. They get what they want out of it, and then they don't make it their hobby, and that's okay. But just you don't have to go across the world even. Just getting outside of your comfort zone and experiencing new people in new places, even if it's an hour away from where you live, is really something that you can't get unless you leave.
Yeah, even just choosing like the bed and breakfast instead of a hotel, where like the property owners are a lot more welcoming and friendly. Like I remember when I was working at this bed and breakfast, obviously with the volunteers we got super close, but just every morning having breakfast with all the guests, and like they come from all over, was so cool. I remember I welcomed, I went outside to go welcome a guest, and it was like a French artist that I love.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What?
And I had to play it cool. I was like, you look familiar.
Wow.
But I was like, oh my God, yeah, like you, like I wanted to see you in concert, and I didn't end up doing it. But yeah, he just like came, and he was on vacation in the south of France with his girlfriend, and we ended up like renting a boat together that day and like hanging out, and again, experiences. Like I was like, what are the odds,
Yeah, it's really, really cool, all the things that you've
and
done.
you're gonna have, because again, you're like on this island that's kind of small and not the most famous ones of Greece, and we're talking about meeting all these people and getting to know all these different people, but like you're gonna get to know yourself.
Yeah,
like
you're
you're
right.
gonna really, you have time to spend with yourself. And which is another thing I love about these volunteer opportunities is, yes, you're like with people a lot, but somehow like I managed to balance out my alone time very well. And yeah, like bring your journal, bring your books. Like there's time for all of that. And just, again, like you're growing because you're putting yourself out there, like learning things about yourself. Like, wow, I handled that situation very well, or wow, I handled that situation very poorly, and I'm a very emotional person, which is okay, you know? But still, you're just like, you're hanging out with yourself, like you're spending time with yourself, like just the way you would travel with someone, like you're traveling with yourself, and it's very empowering. Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited. It'll definitely be a challenge for me. I've solo traveled before, never to this extent, never done a volunteering thing. There's going to be a lot of firsts, I can already tell. And I'm really excited for it because, I'm someone who at least semi-regularly intentionally tries to put myself outside of my comfort zone. So, this is one of those things that I'm lucky enough to have the chance to do, what with all the vacation I have at the moment, working at the university. We don't have classes over the summer, so I have this time, so I'm really excited for it too. All right. So, great.
Yeah, I
So-
guess I would love to give the context about
Okay.
the pooping on the floor.
Okay.
I'm not an animal, even though I did feel like one when I did it.
Yeah.
But basically, I was primitive camping.
Okay.
I did. It was in like the southeast of the United States, so around like the Smokies, the Blue Ridge Mountains. We did like a 2-week camping trip. You know, we had our food, and like, mind you, every dinner, like, we're traveling with 3 vegetarians, you know? So every dinner is like some kind of like canned bean situation. And we would always prep our cold brew in the morning. Like, we would prep it at night, like leave it steeping overnight. And then we would have, like, in a French press, have our nice cold brew in the morning. And we would also make oatmeal in the morning. So a lot of bowel stimulating food.
Fiber.
Yeah.
Caffeine. Just the perfect mix.
Yeah, and we were just like every morning like eating this food. We would have breakfast and then immediately like go into the woods. Like, my bowels have never worked so well. But like towards the end of it, you know, we're having breakfast and we're all looking at each other and we're like, bro, I don't think I could even wait. Like, like, I think I need to go now. So I like literally just, and again, it's primitive camping. So usually camping in the US, you pay for a campsite and like you go, you get your own plot of land. There's like public bathrooms. But in primitive camping, there are these sites where anyone can camp. But you don't have to pay. They're a little tricky to find, but they're wonderful. And so like they're free, but again, there's no facilities. So like, again, it's, you just pitch your tent and
like the good old days.
dig your hole. And so that was, you know, I'm not crazy. I didn't like shit in a Starbucks. Like,
people listening are like the whole time they're like, what was, but let's go back.
Was
to
she
the
on
first
drugs?
part.
Like, so I did, you know, and I didn't just do it where we were having breakfast. Like, I did walk a few steps, like behind the bush, dig my little hole and do it there, you know, but, that was me defending myself. You know, it was okay for me to shit on the floor. What else could I have done?
And that's the beauty of the no context story. So
yeah.
Awesome. All right, great. Well, thanks, Fran.
Yeah, I guess we could wrap up. Thank you for having me. I'm
Thanks
so
for
honored to
coming.
be your first guest.
Yeah, first guest really broke the ice really well. I love your stories.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, and I can't wait to hear, you know, maybe, who knows, I can interview you again.
Yeah. I mean,
and
I
you'll
definitely
have
want to
new
hear about
stories.
how your Greece volunteering worked out.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure they all do too.
Yeah.
You're going to have to give an update on that.
I will. Yep. A little bit later, maybe that'll be a few episodes in.
Yeah.
I'll give a full recap. You're right. I'll have to journal and keep track of everything that I do.
Yes, for sure.
No doubt. Awesome. Well, thanks, Fran.
Thank you. Bye.